Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Bold Metal Nerd coming at you with another vid. And in this one, you see a pile of stuff in front of you. You've already read the title, so you already know what this is going to be about. This is, of course, a budget PC build that I'm doing for my in-laws because, well, they have... This is going to be a PSA to everybody out there. If you have a PC, don't smoke around it. You know, they basically smoke around their computer, so what that does is it gums up the work with the fans and everything. So now, basically, they're to the point to where if they are utilizing the computer for like more than 2 hours, it overheats and shuts down to protect them, or protect the PC. So we got another PC build going on here. At some point, I probably will retrieve their existing PC, blow it out, and, you know, get a better cooling fan than what's currently in there, put some thermal paste on it, and then we'll have that standing by as a spare for them when the same thing inevitably happens to this one in the future, right? So anyway, this is purely a budget build because they have extremely basic needs. This is not a gaming computer or anything like that in the slightest. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go over each component I selected and unbox it the whole 9 yards. So let's go ahead and start with, I guess, the SSD. This is a PNY, looks like S900, 120 gigs. This was $45. It is amazing that that is now, got my official unboxing knife here. It is amazing that that is the cost that you can get a SSD for now. So let's slice that open. Ooh, I took out the box there a little bit. That was overkill, but whatever. So let's see what comes in the box. Probably just the SSD. Yep. Maybe a mounting bracket and some sort of true image software. So, yay. SSD. Now, next one. Let's open the power supply next. Looks like we got a Cooler Master. This was not the cheapest one I could get. In fact, none of these components were the absolute cheapest except for the case. But because I want this to at least be a decent enough PC. The total cost of goods, including sales tax, was $399.99 or $400. So we got a Cooler Master, 500 watt, 80% efficiency. So let's go ahead and open this up. Okay. And we got instructions. We, of course, have a power cord. And we have some screws. And then, of course, we have the power supply itself. So, yeehaw, ain't it purty? Okay. So next we will open up the RAM. It looks like this is some DDR4 because that's what is required with this motherboard. It's never heard of the brand before, but I'm sure it's fine. And ooh, ain't it purty? Look at the purty RAM. It's got the nice red fins on it. Exciting, right? Okay. Next up, let's go ahead and open up the processor. We got an AMD Ryzen 3, what's the exact model? Looks like it is a 2200G. So, it was $100 or $99.99. And she comes with, what else she come with? We got a decent unboxing experience there. Ooh, what's in here? Okay, this is the actual processor. Well, guys, this is going to be a little bit of an edit point because my phone went off while I was unboxing this processor. But you get the general gist of what's in there. We also have shut off the cooling fan coming out, and of course this is the processor itself. And let's see here. Got the lovely processor and the sticker. Exciting stuff, right? And what else do we got here? Instructions, which, let's face it, I'm not going to read. And yeah, okay, so that is that. Now, moving on. We got this lovely Asus Prime B350M-E. Whatever. Oh, there's no tape or anything. No unboxing knife required for that one. So, what all do we get in the box? We, of course, get the lovely back plate, the rear of the case. What else do we got? Oh, here's a lovely book, I'm guessing. A driver disc, yep. And, of course, the motherboard itself. I will not be using a GPU with this. I'm just going to use the integrated GPU. And we, of course, have the lovely motherboard here. Looks like it has 2 RAM slots, which is, well, I got 2 pieces of RAM, so that works out. We got the I/O. Huzzah, right? Yay, stuff. So, that is pretty much it for that. As I try to put this back in the anti-static bag real quick. There we go. Did that off camera. That was exciting for you guys. Okay. Last piece here, of course, is going to be the magical case, which is an Antec VSK3000E. And these product names just kind of roll off the tongue, don't they? So we'll do our unboxing here for you, as I do it all jaggedly. That still worked. This case was a whopping 25 bucks, but I know Antec stuff tends to be fairly decent. And let's see here. Go ahead. Flip it upside down. There we go. Box to the side. And we, of course, have some lovely styrofoam to protect it. Ooh, that is some very thin metal. $25, I'm not surprised. Let's see. Ooh. Sharp. Guys, if you do decide to get a case this cheap, biggest thing I can recommend is be very, very careful handling it, because the metal is thin and a little dangerous, right? So, here we go. We got the lovely front of the case. Pretty exciting, I know. It's a bit hard to see on video, but we got some I/O there. So we got 2 USB 2.0 ports. I know, old and obsolete, whatever. It looks like we got audio in and out. We got a power and reset button. Got the side of the case and the back, and that is pretty much what you got. Actually, guys, looks like there is some stuff inside the case. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to pause, grab a screwdriver, and get the side panel off, and then we'll take a look inside. Alright guys, here we have the case opened up, and it is one of the most basic cases you could imagine, but for $25 that's not surprising. whatever, this is going to be a very basic build, so it really doesn't matter. The only thing that's going to be in here is going to be the motherboard, power supply, one SSD, no optical drives. So it doesn't have to be fancy. What does it come in with? Well, looks like we got one case fan already ready to go. Obviously we have our front panel connectors there, and audio connectors, all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's basically it. Not much to the inside of this case at all. So obviously at this point I am going to put the computer together, and no, as exciting as that would be for you guys to see, I am not going to do this on camera because that would be, you know, kind of long and laborious process. Now, I've built several PCs in my time, but I am hardly what I would call a professional PC builder. This is actually my 10th build that I've ever done over the course of the years. So yeah, it's not like 10 in a week. This is 10 over many years. So I'm going to throw this thing together. Once it's all put together, I'll come back. We'll do the power on test, all that exciting stuff. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright guys, here comes the exciting moment in every build where you try to power it on for the first time. I've got it far enough along to where I'm willing to do that. I haven't installed the SSD yet, but I've got the processor, power supply, all that, and RAM, the whole 9 yards in there. So let's go ahead and... Ooh, the motherboard lights up. That's a really good sign. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the power button. And nothing is happening. Most likely cause of this is I have the power switch wired up wrong on the motherboard. So back to the drawing board. See you guys in a few minutes. Alright guys, moment of truth number 2. I definitely had it plugged into the wrong spot on the motherboard, the power switch, so that's definitely on me. Let's go ahead and see if this thing powers on. We got spinning fans, which means she's powered on. Fantastic. That is what we wanted to see. So now I've got to just simply install the rest of the parts, seal it up, blah blah blah, and we'll be back. So see you guys in a little bit. Alright guys, here we have the fully finished build. Now I haven't installed an OS or anything yet. That's going to be in the next part of the video. I won't actually run through the install in the video, but when you see me again, there will be an OS installed on this thing. So basically, of course, what we're looking at here is the mess of wires. And you're saying to yourself, why on earth does it look like that? Why didn't you do a better job trying to route the wires and all that? Well, thing is, on a case this cheap, there's absolutely pretty much no options for cable routing. You can't route it behind the motherboard or anything. There's simply no room in this case for any sort of what I would call real cable management. So kind of what I did is I just kind of put the cables off to the side as best as I could. The majority of the cables are in the 5.5-inch drive bays, which won't get used. The SSD sadly didn't come with a mounting bracket to properly mount it in the 3.5-inch drive bay, but it is in there. You know, but that's okay. There's no moving parts on the SSD, so it shouldn't hurt it any to have it just kind of sitting in there. You know, and that's basically it. So basically I had to do what I had to do, right? And now that, because, oh, one other thing, I could not use the cooling fan that came with the Ryzen processor. And why is that? Well, the motherboard is so small that this wouldn't fit in because of the RAM. And simply just wouldn't fit. The and the holes where the screws go in were too far apart. But I had this vintage AMD cooler sitting around. It's probably from like the Phenom era. I'm not exactly sure how old it is, but it was brand new. It had never been used, so I slapped that on here, and obviously, as you can see, it's spinning up just fine and working just fine. And of course, the case fan is also spinning, so there you go. Everything works as far as the buttons go. Let's Let's go ahead and hit the reset button. Well, I can't see the screen, but you know, that's going to do the job. And of course the power button. Of course we got the power LED, so let's go ahead and turn the power button off, or just hold it in. There we go, and power on, and obviously LED is good. So that's basically it for this part. What I'm going to do now is get cleaned up, all the junk around and all that, install an OS, all that fun stuff, and then once all that's done, I'll come back, I'll talk a little bit more about the build and what's going to be used for, all that stuff. So see you in a bit. Okay guys, here we are at the part of the video that came hours upon hours later. We've got the obviously we got the CPU here in the in my test bench area that has a network connection available to it, because this thing doesn't have built-in Wi-Fi, so I had to move it in here to connect to the internet and do all that fun stuff, download, updates, all that crap. So that's why it's sitting in there. We got some headphones plugged into it, which will be coming into play in a bit. And go ahead and lift the camera so you can see the screen here. Lifting way up. Okay. And now we see the lovely screen this thing's hooked up to, my lovely 28-inch monitor that I have on my second desk, basically. And the OS of choice that I put on here was Ubuntu 16.04. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why did you put Linux on this? Why didn't you put Windows on? Well, the reason I threw Linux on this machine is, like I said earlier in the video, this machine is going to my in-laws. So if I gave them a Windows PC, it would take them approximately 15 seconds to infect themselves with a virus. Hence, this is why they get Ubuntu, because they have extremely basic computer needs. Pretty much everything they do is browser-based, and they know what the Firefox and Chrome icons do, and those are pretty much all they use. I'll leave this other stuff here just in case they feel the urge to ever do documents or anything, but they pretty rarely do that. So, how's the... Now, I do have to say, before I really dive into this, I did have some issues getting things to work a certain way. When I first loaded Ubuntu on here, the video card didn't work right. Well, it's not really a separate video card, but the integrated you know, GPU that's inside the CPU did not work correctly. So it maxed out at the resolution of 1024 by 768, which is really no good, obviously. It went back to this oddball software rendering mode. So I updated the crap out of Ubuntu, ran all the updates, tried all kinds of stuff. It didn't work. So then I'm like, okay, let's try... I tried the latest version of Linux Mint, actually, after installing Ubuntu on this initially. I updated the crap out of Linux Mint. Like 18 point whatever is the current version of Linux Mint, and I had the exact same results. It failed to run the screen at the correct resolution, still stuck at 1024 by 768. So I did, you know, I was basically Googling, like, are there drivers for this, you know, processor for Linux? And upon my travels, I learned that the support for this was built into the Linux Kernel 4.15. So I looked up the instructions for updating the kernel manually to 4.15 because it most certainly did not do it via normal channels. And lo and behold, here we are. Kernel 4.15 is installed on this thing, so we have full, proper hardware support on this now for the graphics. And hooray, 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 right? You know, Yahoo! It's working, but this is why I would never suggest to a total computer novice to install Linux by themselves on a brand new hardware, because it's not like Windows. If you get a Windows update, a lot of times that new hardware will, especially in Windows 10. Windows 10 is really good about downloading drivers and having them, quote, just work, for lack of a better term. Or you can always go to the manufacturer's website and download the drivers that way. Unfortunately, AMD didn't have any Linux drivers on their site, but thankfully it's built into the newest kernel. Just took a little bit of Googling and boom, here we are. So anyway, enough ranting about that. How's this machine perform? It performs absolutely fantastically. And I don't know why it's asking for that. It's kind of annoying. Whatever. So everything on that needs to work on this does. And performance for, basic web browsing, productivity, the whole 9 yards, we are good to go. Everything works. Let's go ahead and hit a lovely YouTube video. You'll see this handsome devil going on. And as you can see, or hear rather, and in this one, we have sound coming out of the front panel audio. So obviously I have that wired up correctly to the motherboard. So we're good to go on audio, front and rear on this thing. So hooray, right? Obviously performance, pretty much what you'd expect with a fairly modern, even budget processor. Everything works just the way we would hope, right? So let's go ahead and watch some lovely 4K video. Should load up pretty quick. Yep. Here it goes. And it plays the video without a single stutter. The only limitation is my bandwidth, but my bandwidth is pretty decent, so. There you go. This is going to be an absolutely, I would say this is going to be an absolutely fantastic machine for my in-laws. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this build. It definitely would not be a gaming build. Certainly not. But the most important lesson from this build is two things I really took away from this one. Number one, if you're having issues getting hardware to work, Google around, you'll probably find the answer. I mean, that's kind of common sense, but some people don't think of that. Some people would get frustrated, swap it for something else, but a little perseverance can pay off. And keep your parts that you don't use from builds, because this is the cooling fan that came with this with the processor that wouldn't fit on this particular motherboard. But that's not to say that I can't use this in a future build. There's a decent chance I'll be using this cooling fan at some point, just like I used that vintage cooling fan that I had sitting around. So that pretty much wraps this up. As always, if you like this, thumbs up. If you hate me, thumbs down. Share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.